welcome to the Oregon Files podcast. First of all, our disclaimer. We are amateur podcasters simply for entertainment. If we misquote or offend, it was not on purpose to do so. Also, we're recording from currently our back porch. So if you hear kids, dogs, neighbors mowing the yard, accept our apologies. My name is Mark, and here's Elliot Bowman.
Thank you, Mark. And thank you for all our subscribers, our people that listen and download on a regular basis, our folks that comment on Apple Podcasts. We just appreciate all the feedback and the continuing support. I know I say that like every single week, but I don't care if we do this for the next 15 years. I will just continue to just thank everyone because Mark and I are just a little operation from the attic to the backyard to wherever we can record. We just appreciate it. And today we have an awesome guest. We have somebody who is, what we found out, is a little bit of a Renaissance man. He's been a college professor, a high school teacher, and he's been on multiple TV shows. We like to welcome Doug.
Thank you.
Welcome, sir.
Thank you, Elliot. Thank you, Mark.
Hello.
Yes. So, Doug, before we kind of get into like the nuts and bolts of what you've been doing recently, would you mind telling us a little bit kind of your background with teaching and like, I understand you were teaching in Southern California, is that right?
I was. I started off doing some substitute teaching in the LA Unified School District, and then I got a long-term sub job at Hollywood High School, world famous Hollywood High School. And it's just like any other high school. I did that for about 10 years, and I moved around, opened a couple of high schools down there, and ended up becoming a teacher. I had been a nurse for a long time, and that kind of worked into it. But I didn't plan to be a teacher. I was going to be a doctor.
Oh, really?
At the time, I had like a 3.89 GPA. I decided I would become a nurse, and after doing pre-med and stuff, nursing school was right up my alley, and I did that, had a good time doing that. And then I got into a company that started mobile medical services. They put the first CT scanner on wheels.
Oh, really?
Like a big Greyhound bus. Right. And at that time, CT scanners were a bunch of money. So every little hospital couldn't afford it. So if you only had 3 patients that needed a CT scan, we would show up on Wednesday afternoon and we would become your CAT scan department. Yes. And they would wheel the patients. We had a huge lift gate that brought them up, and they went into and the truck was all lined with lead. And so then we did that with MRI and lithotripsy and mammography and lasers and echocardiography. And if you could put it on wheels and share it between hospitals, that's what we did. So,
what are you doing?
And that launched all other sorts of opportunities. I worked for a company here in Roseburg, out of Harvard Medical Park, and we ran, like I said, all of those diagnostic mobile imaging services, but we also had a flying service that we did flight instruction. I was the pilot for Governor Kitzhaber for a couple of years. Like I said, I've had a really, really fun work history and life history too. I did that for a while, and then my wife's mom got sick, and we had to move to Los Angeles. And I had done some acting work, and I figured, well, LA is the place to be. So I figured, while I'm becoming famous, I'll get a job as a substitute teacher, and the rest was history. Just lucked into the teaching thing.
Interesting.
So I taught health and astronomy and tech theater.
Tech theater?
Yeah, lights and sound, and building stuff out of nothing.
Okay. So it was so the high school was Hollywood High School?
I started out at Hollywood High School, and then I opened a new high school called Helen Bernstein High School, and then I opened another high school called the Valley Academy of Arts and Sciences in the San Fernando Valley, and I stayed there until I retired in 2016.
So I've seen the movie Clueless. That's the closest thing I came.
Hollywood High School was a very multicultural environment.
Nice.
There were 44 different languages spoken on campus, and I had 14 different languages in my classes. So everything from Armenian to hairdo. I mean, it was I learned to say sit down and be quiet in like a dozen different languages. And I learned that you can fake it. If you learn a very limited number of phrases in any given language, but you learn to pronounce them like a pro, like a real native, then they assume the rest.
See?
Especially kids,
Yeah.
and you can fake your way through it. And there are other times when, I'll give you an example. You have a group of Armenian boys sitting in the corner, and they're talking like this, and everything's going fine. Then all of a sudden, and I go, "Hey, knock it off." I go, "What, mister? What do we say?" You know what you said, and I don't like that kind of talk in my classroom. "Oh, we're sorry. We won't do it again." So I have no idea, but you can tell by the intonation and the inflection where they were going, and it wasn't going well.
So they were actually celebrity kids, like
We had a few celebrity kids, but they try to lay low. I had Macy Gray's daughter was in one of my health classes. Todd Bridges' son was in one of my tech theater classes. Brilliant kid. But they're just regular kids. And it was fun because I've always looked at teaching as doing a stand-up routine. It's 6 1-hour acts, and it's 6-minute intermissions, and the audience is vicious. So you really have to keep your material up, and you do that.
I love that.
You perform, and you have to, because you're competing with the kid on his iPad, and in the back corner, and so you need to bring it. And it was a blast for me. And I would walk. I had a pedometer one time, and I walked like 4 or 5 miles a day, just up and down the aisles of the classroom to make sure they knew that I was keeping an eye on things. So
I bet you were a memorable teacher.
Oh, I did that intentionally. Yeah, I wanted them to have fun. I wanted them to learn. I wanted to have fun too. I didn't want to be that, that monotone voice that you hear on Charlie Brown. Wah, 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 wah. I didn't want to be that guy. So. Yeah, they looked forward to my classes, I think.
Did you have a favorite subject that you taught?
I liked health because health made sense to me. I'd been a nurse. I'd done all the pre-med stuff and all the anatomy, physiology, that kind of stuff. Just plain makes sense to me. Yeah. So, and I had a fun way of presenting it. So that always worked. And I like astronomy. Astronomy also I like physics, and physics comprises such a broad scale, from microphysics, little things that go on atomically, to interactions of galaxies on a cosmological or an astronomical. Yeah. But it's all physics. It all makes sense. Mm-hmm. I grew up in Portland, or I lived up there till I was like 8, 9, I think. Okay. Vancouver, Washington, Portland.
Okay. So the transition, so you started in Oregon and you went from Southern California, is that right?
Yeah, as a kid, I grew up in Oregon, Vancouver, Washington, Portland, and then folks moved to West Covina, which is in the San Gabriel Valley in Southern California, and then we moved to Orange, California. Yeah. Our housing project literally displaced an orange grove. I mean, that's how the developments were going back then.
This closer to Azusa?
Right? West Covina is.
So I was born and raised in Covina.
Oh, seriously?
No.
What a coincidence.
Yeah. What a small world.
Oh, gosh, yes. I went to West Covina High, and I got the bad end of the stick because we were in West Covina, and West Covina High was a 4-year high school. Yeah. So I was a freshman, or a 9th grader, and I was a low man on the totem pole. Everybody, So then we moved to Villa Park. That was a 3-year high school. And now I'm a sophomore, and I thought I was big stuff. No, you're back at the bottom of the totem pole again. But we lived there, and then from Orange, my dad got a job in Kansas City, Kansas. Oh, wow. And so I think I gave Kansas about 3-4 months to prove worthy of my residency, and then I went back. I was so cowboy back then, I had a surfer wave and I had hair. So I went back to California. Went in the Air Force. Things just kind of progressed.
Yeah. So coming from Oregon, Portland's a big city, but I feel like Portland's kind of a different type, bigger city than going to like LA and Kansas City. So what was kind of like that transition like for you as far as,
I didn't mind I didn't mind Orange County, Southern California. I have always hated LA. It's just it's just too big a city for me.
Sure.
And I subsequently tried to work my way back up to Oregon. I mean, I stayed in California. I stayed in California for pretty much until I turned, I think, in my 30s. I was working for a diagnostic imaging company, and I got transferred to San Francisco Bay Area. And then from there, Sacramento. And then from there, I got a job offer in Roseburg, and I love Roseburg.
Sure. Yeah. Oregon's beautiful.
Yeah.
I grew up in New Jersey. So coming from the East Coast has some really pretty places too. But, Oregon, when I first came out here in high school, I mean, it's like a picturesque postcard. I mean, there's just, Oregon just really has a natural, beautiful.
Well, back in 2018, I think, after both my wife and I were retired together, we took a 5-month, 10,000-mile cross-country trip with our 19-foot travel trailer.
Okay.
And stayed married. We looked for, we went all over. We went through all the southern states, went up the East Coast, went into Canada, came back over into Michigan, and didn't see anything as pretty as the drive from Nevada on the 138 coming all the way across Oregon.
Yeah.
It was, the leaves were changing. We had the rivers right there. It was just, we lucked out. We got a good place to live.
So have you been outside the U.S.?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
When I was in the Air Force, I was stationed in Germany, and I traveled a lot there. I ran a backpacking and bicycling and rock climbing company called Your Trip, EUR Trip, with a guy named Tom Galbraith. We did rock climbing tours and bicycle and backpacking for like military dependents. And so I got to go to northern Italy and France, and didn't go to England, but I sent a buddy of mine that was going to England, and he got me a dartboard. That's all I really. And now I have a niece that lives in England. So where else have I been? Canada. I love Canada. When I was in the Air Force, I worked in a secure communications field, and so they would often pack us up in an airplane with our little Jeeps filled with radios and take all the insignia off of our uniforms and fly somewhere, sit down, set up all of our communications equipment, and then do what they want us to do, and then pack it all up. So I've probably been lots of places that I don't remember being.
Why did they do that?
Oh, because it was the Vietnam War, and they probably didn't want everybody to know that where they were doing, what they were doing. So, yes, I was called a ROMAD, Radio Operator, Maintenance, and Driver.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah. And at the same time, I became a paramedic. I took paramedic training in the civilian world. At that time, they called them EMT3s. But yeah. It was,
interesting.
Yeah, that's how I satisfied my need to
Favorite place you've been?
Favorite place I've been? Roseburg.
Roseburg?
Yeah, honestly, Roseburg's got so much. There were lots of places I liked in Canada. I really enjoyed Canada. The people were nice, but it's not home. Roseburg is just...
Yeah.
Roseburg's just right.
Right?
Yeah.
I agree.
I
Yeah, it's like the mama bear of the places to live.
Right. So can you tell us kind of how you got started with acting? Like, what was kind of like your first gig? What was your kind of intro into the acting world?
My first gig was in kindergarten. I did The Night Before Christmas. I'll never forget, for Mrs. Gillespie's class, and she kissed me on the cheek at the end, and I was mortified. But so I took a 36-year hiatus, I think, after that performance. And we were in Roseburg, and my daughter Amanda is just an incredible talent. She has a voice like an angel. I'm a little bit prejudiced, but I mean, seriously, the kid can sing.
Really?
And so...
I'm going to have to ask her.
Oh.
I'm going to have to tell her this.
Now she'll kill me. But honestly, she really, really has a wonderful voice.
Okay.
And so I talked her when she was like 10, 11 maybe. I talked her into doing Pirates of Penzance by a youth musical theater group in town, and they performed at the Elks Lodge downtown.
Yeah.
And Elks Lodge has a great theater and a great stage and setup. I mean, it's really a nice place. And there are several of those venues in Roseburg. I don't want to digress. Anyway, so I made Amanda do that, and she said, okay, but if I do this, the next time they have a musical out at the college, you have to audition and you have to be in the musical at the college. And it was Fiddler on the Roof.
Okay, which is perfect.
Oh,
Yeah.
so I was, I wasn't Tevye, I was Mendel, the rabbi's son. And the rabbi was a guy named Ben Trill, who I just love. I don't know if he's around anymore. Anyway, it's out at UCC, and as with all things, I wasn't just part of the crew. I mean, I got into building the sets and running the lights and the sound and learning everything. And I worked with Dean Remick, who, I don't know if you guys know him. He was the former director of theater out at UCC. Just a genius. I learned so much from that guy. And then I got hooked, and I did like anytime anything would come up at UCC or at UACT. And I became president of the board of UACT, and I did all the lights and sound, and UACT was such a different environment than UCC. UCC was high tech, and things fly out, and UACT was no, you have to climb up on a ladder and, and do this and put a thing in front, and it was more manual work. Same thing, the soundboard. No, nothing was digital. It was all analog, and I loved it because you really learned the workings of sound. And then when it became digital, it was, oh, really? All I have to do is push this button, But yeah.
And Mark,
that was
your sister.
Yeah, my sister does a lot of stage work at UACT.
What's her name?
Sarah Layton. Yeah.
I'm sure did she do stage management?
Yeah, yes. That was her forte.
Is she before Melody?
She's during the Melodies. Yeah, yep.
Okay.
Yeah, in fact, I was Melodies. She was like Melody's right-hand person there for a while. Yeah.
Yeah. Mel and I worked really well together. She was the director for, actually, the last play I did out at UACT was called Every Christmas Story Ever Told. And I love the way Melody works. I love her style of directing. And by the time we hit the stage to perform, we all felt just so ready. She really has a good style.
Great place. I've seen some great plays.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah, so you've done stage plays, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you've done TV. So I would assume, but I mean, you prefer stage over TV, or do you prefer? One way or the other? Or?
I like stage work because it's live, and depending on what production you're doing, the tech can vary. Mm-hmm. It can be just you on stage, no mic, no anything, or it can be full lighting, full effects, all that good stuff. TV is so artificial.
Right.
It's sit in your trailer for 3 hours, come out, do 30 seconds or maybe of work, and then go back in your trailer for 3 more hours. It's very artificial. I was just on Domino Masters.
Yes.
Again, what you see, it's been fascinating to watch the finished product and know what went into the sausage maker.
Yeah. So now that we're there, how did that even come about? You getting on Domino Masters?
Okay.
Because from what I understand, you're not much of a domino. Did you have a lot of ideas about?
I had never knocked one domino into another domino except by accident in my life. But I can fix anything known to man.
Okay.
Because I have broken everything known to man and then had to fix it so I didn't get in trouble. But I've got that knack. My dad was a carpenter. My grandfather was a cobbler, made shoes. So I think I have that fine motor thing where I like to do things with my hands. I am. So when I think it was my last high school, I had a student who ended up becoming a casting agent.
Okay.
And she had called me for a number of things over the years. I think she called me once for Are You Smarter Than a Fifth Grader?
Okay.
But they already had a little old retired high school teacher, so they didn't need another one. And it came time for Domino Masters, and she called me up and she said, I've got this great show. I think it's right up your alley. And she said, it's called Domino Masters. I said, what do you think about Domino? And she goes, no, but it's a team thing. And she goes, I'll pair you up with a guy that knows everything you need to know about dominoes. So they paired me up with a kid named Michael Fantuzzo and his cousin, Matt Van Vleck. And Matt is an extreme sports enthusiast. He snowboarding tricks and skiing tricks and rotations and all these degrees and 340, 360, 540. And Michael is a domino geek. He's 22 years old. He's been doing dominoes since he was 10. And he's that kid that when the family would get together for Thanksgiving or whatever, Michael would go up in the attic and make domino structures. That's just his lot in life. And he was incredibly skilled when it came to dominoes. I was the machine guy, the chain reaction guy. Are you familiar with Rube Goldberg?
No.
Rube Goldberg started off as a cartoon strip in the newspapers. And Rube Goldberg was a guy that would design these chain reaction machines, and like a boot would swing down and it would kick a football, and the football would go through a hoop, and then it would land in a puddle of water, and the water would overflow, and it would trigger something else, and then something else, and all of these chain reaction machines. Well, these chain reactions now are legendary. They've gone viral, and one of the judges on Domino Masters, a guy named Steve Price, has made a living of doing these domino videos. There's one that I recommend called Pass the Salt. And I think it's called Pass the Salt with Social Distancing or something. Okay. Two guys on either side of a table, and one guy says to the other guy, could you pass the salt? And he turns around and he triggers a chain reaction machine that takes like 4 minutes. And it's all like normal objects, like a teapot goes down a ramp, and then eventually the spout of the teapot hits something, and it's you have to watch it. But anyway, that was right up my alley. And Domino Masters, Fox gave us the most incredible resource. They started off calling it the Depot, and then I think it ended up being called the Shop. But it was this huge 3 or 4 of every power tool Ryobi makes.
I love it.
Oh, yeah. And a guy named Tyler, that you would walk into the shop, and I'll give you an example. I would say, Tyler, I'm rigging something up. I think I need a little pulley. And he goes, okay, do you want a rubber plastic pulley? Do you want a nylon pulley? Do you want a metal pulley? Do you want a wood pulley? I go, seriously? He goes, yeah. I go, okay, plastic pulley. I don't need anything that weighs very much. Okay. Do you want a 1-inch pulley or a 2-inch pulley? Do you want a 3-inch pulley or a 5-inch pulley? I go, seriously? Okay, I just need, a 2-inch pulley. He goes, okay, do you want to pull it mounts from the top? Do you want to pull it mounts from the bottom? Do you want to pull it mounts from the side? I mean, every single thing. I need a bolt. You want an 8mm bolt? Do you want a 10mm? I mean, again, everything from lumber. I could have built a small house, and they would bring in sheets of plywood and 2x4s. And if you wanted to build it, if you had it in your head, they would make it happen. It was just the most creative environment I think I've ever been in. And it was just infinite. It was just, I was like a kid in a candy store.
Right.
Yeah.
So how did...
back. I interviewed on Zoom and did some little videos around the place. And then, so I got the audition. So we went to Los Angeles. They put us up in a really nice hotel in Marina del Rey. And then we went into hard quarantine for a week. Okay. And not even out of our rooms of the hotel. Everybody had to be quarantined. And then very, very, very strict COVID regs. All of the crew wore masks the entire time. I couldn't tell you what anybody looked like. They never took their masks off. We were COVID tested every other day by the brain sample nurse, because we swore that she had to get the Q-tip up far enough to sample your brain. But again, very, very, very safe, very, very conscientious. It was funny. It took a little while for me to get into this team environment, because Michael and Matt, I was 22 years older than both of their ages combined. Okay. Yeah, so I was 69, Michael was 22, Matt was 25, and they didn't know who James Taylor was. They didn't know who Jackson Brown was.
Oh, wow.
Oh, I thought you said I don't know who James Taylor is. No, I know. Isn't that like sacrilegious? You can be banned for that. But anyway, other things. The first build we did was called Movie Night.
Yep.
And we decided we were going to do horror genre. Mike nor Matt had ever been to a horror movie. They'd never seen The Shining. They'd never seen Poltergeist. They'd never seen Friday the 13th. They'd never seen, any of these.
Yeah.
So I said, well, I said, this is really easy. We could do a field with the TV from Poltergeist where it had the hand and the little girl said, they're here. And they're, like, I could watch their hair move. This stuff was going over their heads so fast. Exactly. So I said, never mind. I'll do it. I said, and so I drew it out, and Mikey is the Domino genius, and he put it into a format that we could lay it all out. And then for the hand, we had these really cool dominoes that had LEDs in them.
Yeah.
And when they topple, they flicker. And so the TV and the screen toppled, but the hand was left flickering. I was very proud of it.
It turned out really neat.
Yeah, we had some fun. The last one we did was the circus.
Yes.
And
Yes.
my trapeze didn't get the justice it deserved, because the way that trapeze worked was, I had it rigged. It had to trigger something.
Yeah.
So the way I did it, I had a little domino guy that I built. I put a little again. I want to make a little human being out of a domino. Oh, well, here's a round wooden ball for a head. Now, oh, well, how am I going to attach that little ball to the domino? Oh, well, here's a dozen ways to do it. Do you want to glue it? Do you want to solder it? Do you want to weld it? Do you want to just put a stick in there? Do you want to put a dowel? Do you want to screw it in? Do you want to bolt it? Yeah.
You tell me, Tyler.
Exactly. So anyway, I had this little domino guy glued to the bottom of the trapeze with a neodymium magnet on his feet.
Okay.
And so he would swing down, and he picked up another guy just like him that had a magnet on his head.
Okay.
So swinging over to him, he cleared the domino string that he was supposed to trigger.
Yeah.
But once he picked up his little guy and they both swung back, they triggered the domino line.
That wasn't in the show.
No, they did. If you knew what you were looking for and you really zoomed in, you can kind of see it happen. But I was so proud of that, and it went by. Another thing that TV doesn't give you the representation.
Yeah.
So,
my biggest takeaway question from that, they gave you guys like 16 hours.
Yes.
Was it a straight 16 or was it over 2 days?
No, it was over 2 days, sometimes 3 days.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, they're in the same clothes. I'm like, they do it. Yeah.
Well, and here's what would happen is, at the end of the day, whatever, the first day was usually the longest and the most tedious, and it would be, 10 or 12 hours. And what they would do is, there were all these little side things we did. When they show us interviewing, they called it the confessional or whatever. Where the three of us are side by side. That was a whole separate room, and they would take us away from that. And of course, the clock stops. When Eric would come out and do one of his little promotional things, the clock would stop. So it wasn't 16 hours in a row. And then we'd go home, we'd go back to the hotel, and then we'd get up the next morning and do it again. And these platforms were engineering marvels. They were just under 3 feet tall. I think they were 32 inches tall. And they had a little step around two sides of them. And then they were 24 feet by 24 feet. And they were made out of this aircraft structural girders that had no flexion, no scoot, no vibration, no anything. And then the entire thing was covered with this layer of, I don't know what it was made of. It was like linoleum, but there were no seams, there were no bumps, there were no bubbles, it was perfectly level.
Wow.
The entire thing. And hard as a rock, my old knees and my elbows. And I finally got him to get us some of these gardening pads that you can kneel down on. That saved me. But a lot of the time I was in the shop because I did my share of the domino building, but that was for the kids to do. I was the idea guy and the machine guy.
So when you showed up like the first day, I mean, those guys obviously knew each other, and then did they like introduce you? Like, this is now going to be your third
it was
partner?
Funny because this meant the world to Michael. Michael, held a Guinness World Record.
Oh, wow.
He was one of the participants in the largest domino topple ever, 250,000 dominoes or something.
Amazing.
It was on a show called, I think, The Incredible Science Machine or something, and it was a team of people that got together and they did it over 6 days, I think. And anyway, when Lauren told him, because he had a team member that something happened, they had a scheduling conflict or something, so he had to lose this other person, and I came in. And Lauren had told him that I was a retired high school science teacher and I was really into NASA. And he thought she said NASCAR. And he thought he was going to get some good old beer drinking, Budweiser swilling, good old boy. And he was just petrified. And he had called her up and said, I can't do this. I gotta have a guy that knows what he's doing. And it didn't take long before I endeared myself to them. But yeah, it took us a little while before he knew I could, because he would say, well, we don't have one of these. I'll build it. Yeah. What do you mean you build it? I'll go in the shop, I'll grab some stuff, I'll build it, I'll come back. I'll give you an example. One of our tricks for movie night was from The Shining, where the axe comes through the door.
Yes. Yeah.
And that was a judge's criteria. The judges would give us certain things we had to do in the build. And sometimes we wouldn't get that notification until the night before.
Oh, wow.
So you kind of have this plan set, and now all of a sudden they say, and this has to happen. But that made it exciting. So I had ordered a prop axe. I told Michael, I said, okay, I'm just going to build this little structure, and you rig up a little trigger at the bottom with your dominoes, and then the axe will fall down and go through the wall. He goes, no, you can't do that. You have to. I said, no, trust me, I can do it. He said, no, I'm really worried. I don't think how you can. So I'm not kidding. I went back in the shop. I grabbed some wood. I grabbed some bolts. I grabbed the drill. And I came back in like less than 10 minutes, and I had this little structure with an axe that would just fall like this. It was the simplest thing. It was like building a swing set. And he said it worked. And I said, yeah, it worked. That's what I do. You got to trust me.
Yeah.
So, and we had one little conflict on the show, the Stay in Your Lane episode, where I had set up a drawbridge with a pool ball that was going to roll down the drawbridge, hit the expanse, it falls down. It had to be triggered from the very, very top of the run. Otherwise, it didn't have enough momentum to hit the ramp and continue down the ramp. Well, Michael kept starting the ball before the trigger, which was maybe 6 inches further down the ramp. It doesn't seem like much, but it was enough that it didn't have enough momentum to make the corner. Yeah. And he kept telling me that it wouldn't work. It wouldn't work. And I said, no, it won't work if you do it your way, but if you do it the way it was designed to work, it'll work. And they didn't show as much of it on the TV show, but it just didn't end. It was like nonstop. He was on me. And it was like, dude, and then finally I turned around and I went, seriously? Stay in your lane.
That's what they caught.
Yeah. And of course, and then they tried to make it this big.
Yeah.
And even last time, the last show, Eric had come up to me. Oh, what's up with that? I said, that wasn't a conflict. They said, let's bring back the video. But we love each other. We got along. Just fine. Michael he's a very myopic, but I mean that in a good way. He's very focused. Yeah. But yeah, it was the hardest fun I've ever had.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. It sounds like a lot of fun. Yeah. What was kind of like the interactions with like Eric Stone Street and
Eric was the host, and he pretty much, did what Fox kind of designed for him to do. I really like Danica.
Yes.
Danica McKellar. Yeah. Winnie Cooper, and she's like on every Hallmark movie, every other Hallmark movie you see, and all the little catchy phrases,
So they interacted with you guys a lot, or was it really just for like TV purposes?
It was mostly for TV purposes. Yeah. Every now and then, they would do some little side things, like but there were two camera guys on you 24/7. There was one close-up person, and then there was another one that was far away but was still doing less in-your-face kind of things. And you were supposed to ignore the camera people, but I got along really well with my camera people because I didn't want them to take pictures of me picking my nose or doing something uncomplimentary, but my camera people liked me. Yeah. But Danica has another whole life where she did a series of math books for girls to get girls more interested in engineering and the physical sciences. And so she wrote probably several, and she was a co-writer in another science paper on the physics of some kind of chemical shift. I mean, she's
sharp.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she of the three judges, I think she was the one that seemed most genuinely interested. But she's the one that she seemed like she was saying, we all got dominoes that were signed by each of them.
Oh, that's
cool.
awesome.
Nice.
And on hers, she wrote me a little note, great job, Doug. And then she signed her name. And I don't think the other ones. We made a big dent.
Yeah.
Yeah, what a treasure.
So what other movies, TV shows have you done then as well?
I did. I was on a show called The Mind of Mencia.
Yeah. Carlos Mencia. Yep.
Or Carlos Mencia, I guess, as Joe Rogan calls him. He became infamous, I guess, for taking other people's jokes.
Yep.
Now, Milton Berle did that back in the 30s and 40s and became famous for it, but this wasn't a good thing. But anyway, Carlos Mencia had a show called Mind of Mencia, and every week it had a theme. And the week I was on was themed. Carlos got tired of everybody in the world killing themselves in the name of God.
Yeah. Yep.
So he decided to have the Royal Religious Rumble, the RRR. His guest host was The Edge, a former WWF guy. Fascinating individual. One of the most fun, intelligent guys I've spoken with in a long time, and he was massive. He had arms as big around as my waist, and you would think he would be one of those, I got smart. But no, he was incredible. Anyway, so he decided he would have this Royal Religious Rumble, and it would be where all the gods in the world got together and had a wrestling match, and whoever came out on top would be the god.
Yeah.
Right?
It was on Comedy Central. Yeah.
Yes. So I auditioned to be Moses.
Perfect.
And I came in a monk's costume with a big staff and everything. But they wanted, as nice as my beard is, they wanted somebody with a really, really long beard, somebody that they could put an artificial beard on. But they liked me, so they made me Moses's corner man. So, like when Moses was fighting with Jesus, I would hand him these foam tablets with the Ten Commandments, and he would hit Jesus over the head. And they had me dressed as a Hasidic Jew with a big, huge coat with the fur and the fur hat and the curls and everything. And it was like 9 million degrees. But anyway, so that was my claim to fame there. And found out that Carlos Mencia's, now talk about a small world. His wife's mom was the best friend in high school of Amanda's best friend's mom. Yeah.
Repeat that.
Okay. Carlos Mencia's wife, her mother was best friends with Amanda's best friend's mom.
Interesting.
In Roseburg. Yes. Yeah, and I grew up around here. Yeah. And I told him that, and he was like, oh, really? It was like no big, didn't have to do with him, so.
Like, whatever.
But I did, there was a show on the FX network for a while called Nip Tuck.
Okay.
Yes.
Yep.
About plastic surgeons and all that. And I had a job as a cameraman. I played a cameraman on Nip Tuck.
Okay.
But it wasn't that kind of story. It was the two younger characters in Nip Tuck. It was a side story. They were having a baby, and she was feeling not attractive, and so I guess she had a history. So her husband, to make her feel better, brought all her old crew to do their own, so she would feel better about herself. And I was Marty, her favorite old cameraman.
What in the world?
And I had one line, "Hey, sweetheart," and I still get to this day. Sending a joke about it. I may even have one in my wallet, but I get checks for like a penny.
I was going to ask if you get residual checks for that.
Yeah, like 2 cents. I get more money from doing the little thing I did on Mind of Mencia. I think last year I got $18 total.
That is funny. So like in the memo line of the checks, does it say cameraman?
No, it says if you ever watch Nip Tuck, there are like several stories going on, but the main story that they start off with is a guy with a ventriloquist act, and he was getting old, but the dummy wasn't. So he wanted to have them do plastic surgery on him so that he looked like the dummy.
Checks out.
And that was the Willie Ward. Anyway, that was the
Interesting.
But I had this little vignette. What else did I do? I wrote some stuff.
Ben Stein's money?
I won $900 of Ben Stein's money.
Nice.
was Ben Stein like?
Ben Stein was cool.
Yeah.
And I met him.
Like he would be
I
really
met him
cool.
a couple of times after that because I end up like you guys were talking, we're having a good time, and that's what happened. I was on Ben Stein's Money, and they liked me, and they said, would you like to come back and be an evaluator for? We're looking for another host because at the time I did Ben Stein's Money. The host wasn't Jimmy Kimmel anymore. It was Nancy Pimentel. They had a lady on there for a while. And then Nancy was going to leave, so they wanted me to help audition other hosts and be the game show contestant over and over and over. So I did that. I was on The Weakest Link.
Oh, okay.
It wasn't Ann, what's her name? It was the other guy, the annoying blonde-haired guy.
Okay.
That kept wanting me to do the old, there's gold in them out here. He thought I looked like Gabby Hayes or something. And I was the weakest link. I got kicked off that because I didn't realize that, I was too smart.
Yeah. Okay.
I answered too fast. Yeah. I had the answers. It's the same reason I can't play trivia at loggers. I'm the guy in the team that shouts out the answer and they go, no, you're supposed to just write it down. Yeah, but okay. I was in Dukes of Hazzard the beginning.
Okay.
Went straight to DVD. Yep. The premise was it was Dukes of Hazzard before the Robert E. Lee, before Daisy got her Dukes. It was when they were like high school kids. And then they just get the car. I had a scene with Willie Nelson where I played Moonshine Buyer #1. Yeah, and Willie Nelson was really cool too. He would just come and go. He had handlers. Okay. And so they would bring him in and he would do his scene and then he would go back to his trailer and play with his kids and they had a little area. Anyway, I had a scene where they were moonshine vendors and I was a buyer. And they hand me the moonshine and I take a sip and I go, nice bouquet, kind of fruity. And the guy on the other side says, and I'll try to make this user friendly, it'll burn your blanks off and make you blind. And I said, I'll take 6 cases. So, that was it. So, and my scene, when you do the DVD pages and they show you what's in which chapter, my still is actually one of those on the DVD.
That's so cool.
Yeah, that was my claim to fame. Oh, I was on Test the Nation.
I remember
it was with Mark.
It was like a news show?
No. It was one of those special things. I think it might even have been on Fox, but they had different segments. Like it was a national IQ test.
Yeah.
And they had different sections in the audience, and one section was bodybuilders and weightlifters, and another was dumb blondes, and another was I was in the teachers and professors section, and I had a hairpiece back then. I had a hairpiece. My agent decided that they would do a whole bunch of different pictures, hairpiece, full beard, bald, full beard, hairpiece, a little bit of a beard, bald, a little bit of a beard, all the way down to clean shaven. And they ended up, this was the look that was most marketable anyway. The hairpiece I had, which was a really nice, expensive hairpiece, but it was supposed to last for a month and then you swap them out and they, service the old one and then when you come back they swap them out. But I have, I guess, a hyper metabolism and I would sweat through the beast in like 2 weeks and it looked like somebody like glued a muskrat onto my head or something. And it was like the yarmulke from hell. It was glued on your head with surgical cement. I always thought, the only thing worse than being bald would be hair you have to mess with all the time, and that's kind of what this was like. So we got rid of that. But on Test the Nation, I had full head of hair, and I think I had a beard. Yeah, pretty much. I pretty much always had a beard.
Did you ever try it for Jeopardy?
No, I have been. I was on their list for a while, and I forget what happened. I had some conflict or something, and I couldn't. Win Ben Stein's Money was probably the closest I came to. Funny story about Win Ben Stein's Money. If you tie Ben, you get whatever money you got, and I had $900.
Yeah.
But if you win, you get another $1,000.
Right.
Well, you lose all sense of reality. They put you in the booth, you have these headphones on, and they did it. So you come out of the booth, and they're asking you questions now. And the question is, they go, what famous song and dance man was originally named Frederick Austerlitz?
Okay.
Okay, now, everybody knows it's Fred Astaire, right?
Yeah.
as soon as I heard song and dance, all my brain would think of was Sammy Davis Jr. And so that's the answer I gave. And I could hear the guys in the control room on the floor laughing, because
Now, love it. So have you run into other celebrities, throughout your television career that you found interesting? Besides The Edge, which is kind of a shocker.
Yeah, he was fun. I liked Danica. Danica was fun.
Uh-huh.
There's a joke about meeting Brad Pitt.
Yeah.
I met Brad Pitt, and they say that you should never meet your celebrity heroes, but I thought Brad handled it pretty well. Because I was his celebrity hero, of course.
Oh, I got it.
I love it.
You guys, if I'm going to have to write these down for you, it's not
that's on the table. If you could meet, or if you could bring, 3 or how many people to like a dinner party or have dinner with, alive or dead, who would be kind of those people? It doesn't have to be celebrities. Alive.
Okay, I'm going with alive. Oh, you mean not dead or alive?
Either way.
No, I'm kidding, because dead people at a dinner party are such a drag.
Conversation.
I'll never do that.
Oh, man.
But that's another time. Let me think. If I could have dinner with 3 people,
Yeah. Zombies or otherwise.
I would go with, let's see, I think Jesus. Just to figure out,
Sure. Absolutely.
Why not?
Yeah.
Are you real? Is it real?
Absolutely.
If so, the rest of my life is going to be significantly. No, just kidding.
I'm afraid to be a little preachy.
I live that way anyway, so I'm clean. Nikola Tesla.
Ooh, good one.
I think Tesla. I would love to pick that guy's brain. Because I really think he is unappreciated and underestimated as the true genius he was. And wireless everything. I think power and I think he was really an on the edge kind of guy.
Yeah, you got a car named after him, so
exactly.
Checks,
Elon would be fun, but I've actually met Elon Musk.
What?
Yeah. Oh, but that's right. That's a celebrity, isn't he?
Yeah.
I toured SpaceX, which nobody will ever be able to tell. Yeah, I toured SpaceX, but I was in a group. Gosh, I had so much. It was with internship that I was doing for the Jet Propulsion Lab out in Pasadena. And as a high school teacher, they were trying to get kids involved in the E component of STEM. Are you familiar with that term? Science, technology, engineering, and medicine, or math, I think sometimes. But they wanted people more interested in the engineering component. So they pulled out all the stops and showed us stuff at JPL that was just fascinating. But we got to go to SpaceX, and I got to see, and again, you'll never be able to prove this, but I got to see hundreds of Falcon 9s, all made, all done. I saw, again, hundreds of Merlin engines. This guy's ready to take people to Mars, like 80 at a time.
He's going to.
Yes, I am. But I asked him, because I was interested, I would love to be an education guy for Tesla or for SpaceX. He doesn't want education. He doesn't want anybody to know what he's doing. He doesn't believe in outside education, or I don't care if you know what I'm doing or not. I'm just going to keep doing it. So I asked him about the landing legs, because at that time, he was about 25% landing these boosters coming back. And I said, it looks to me like, and I'm giving him advice, it looks to me like if you made the landing leg just like 2 feet longer, and then it wouldn't tip over. Just enough stability. And he'd say 2 feet longer on the 4 landing legs, we wouldn't be able to get it off the ground. It was that kind of balance, Third guy, Robin Williams. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Haunted individual. I'm sorry that happened, but oh my gosh, I bet he and I would be just synchronous.
Yeah, he's a genius.
I think that would be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be able to eat. This would be a dinner party where nobody would eat.
Drinking dinner party.
I wouldn't waste time.
Those are good ones.
I read his biography or autobiography when I was like, I don't know, 10 or 11 or something. I can't remember. But he was one of the first people that really piqued my interest into comedy and then just being a unique individual. I thought he was such a
The other thing is there are guys that do observational comedy, like Jerry Seinfeld, and a lot of comedians nowadays. They see something and they relate it to you in a funny way. But I think Jonathan Winters is probably the only other comedian that I was aware of that would come out on stage like completely naked from a performance standpoint. No props, no anything, just he'll see somebody in the audience that triggers something and boom, he's off.
Yeah.
And that drove him crazy. It drove him, Jonathan Winters, it made him neurotic because that's a lot of pressure to just go out on stage and go, okay, be funny.
Right.
Yeah. But that I kind of picked up on that. That's that opportunistic comedy. You don't know it's going to be funny until it happens.
Right. Yeah.
And I'm one of those poor people that can find something funny in the most morbid, you name it. I can make a joke out of it. It's just terrible. And I don't know how many times my family will turn to me at the dinner table and go, seriously? Did you really say that? Yeah, well, it was funny.
It's a joke.
Yeah, it's a joke.
Yeah, that's interesting. So as far as when you're sitting around a dinner table, do you give life lessons or stories that you tell your family, or do you want to give life lessons? Or
according to my family, they've heard all those stories 20 times.
Yeah.
And the bad thing is, they will let me go all the way through the story and then tell me how many times I've told the story.
Yeah.
Painful. No, I kind of live my life lessons. Kinda, not to wax religious, but I don't know if there's a heaven or a hell.
Sure.
You know, sometimes I think that heaven and hell is right here, right now.
Right.
You know, you make your own heaven, you make your own hell.
Right.
Just in case, I'm going to be a nice guy and I'm not going to rape and pillage regularly. But I think the heaven and hell, most of it is what we have, what we have right here and now. And so you make the most of it.
Right. So where do you think, like, as far as humanity and kind of like the world is heading, you know, speaking about like heaven or hell, where do you kind of see us kind of going? I know right now it's kind of, I know, well, I know we all kind of like live in the moment because we're all surrounded by everything that goes on in the news and our lives. So it's kind of hard to really say what's going to happen in 25 years, but your perspective, how do you see us heading?
It's funny because I had these conversations with my mom. You know, when you're a little kid and you say, people say, oh, the apocalypse is on its way because the Bible says that when this happens and this happens and this happens, oh, we're going to hell in a handbag. And I'd go to Mom and I'd say, what? It looks like, I think back then it was
Y2K.
It was the Palestinians and the Israelis, or the Egyptian war, or something like that, the Arab-Israeli war.
Yeah.
And she said, I had the same conversation with my mother, and she had that same conversation with her mother, except back then it was, Germany invading Poland or whatever, and blah, blah, blah. And so it happens all the time. So I think you got to do the here and now. Am I concerned about, what's going to go on in the future? It depends on how far in the future. We may not have a whole lot of future left, unfortunately. I, as a physicist and an astronomer and aware of those kind of forces, a lot of the stuff that I see environmentally concerns me because these things tend to have a whiplash effect. It's not like it's a linear curve. It's exponential. And so what happens is, it's like doing the crack of the whip when you're a kid and ice skating, and the last person, it starts off real slow and everybody's catching up, but that last little whip, and the next thing you know, it's out of control. And that's what I concern about, is that it'll grow on a scale that we can't control. Even as well intentioned as we may be, it may be out of our hands.
No return.
Yeah. Now, how long is that going to take? I don't know. Hopefully, not as long as my grandkids are alive. And you would think that. I wouldn't want to wish it on anybody past them either. But I don't know. Are we going to go out and colonize other planets and escape? I don't know. It was
maybe we'll be saved by aliens.
60 years between the time we got off the ground and the time we landed on the moon. So another 60 years, who knows?
It's very fascinating subject. And so with your background, you're wanting to know if there's more. or would appreciate your take on it. Like the global warming, people don't believe in it or don't believe in some of the science and that kind of stuff, and then it scares me.
And it should.
Yeah.
It should. And again, not. I would like to think, and I tend to think that I don't think we'll see that apocalyptic action in our lifetime. However, we got tornadoes in New York. We got snow in Roseburg in April. 2 days, 3 days after it was 82 degrees. So, I mean, we can ignore that. I mean, that's reality. That's real time today reality. Is that an effect of global warming? I think that it all, we're in a very, very finite bubble here.
Very fascinating. Yeah, very fascinating.
So do you think that there's extraterrestrial life out there watching us and kind of like waiting for us to kind of just like...
Knowing what I know about cosmology and now what we're about to find out with the James Webb Space Telescope, we're in our infancy as far as observing the observable. The observable universe is about to probably at least quadruple. So we don't even know what we don't know right now. So if there are extraterrestrials out there, there's a reason they haven't overtly contacted us. Either we are so primitive that we have absolutely nothing to offer them, which if they have evolved to the point of being able to travel from wherever, I mean, the closest place they could come from is light years away. And in distance, a light year is 5,800,000,000,000 miles away. That's a long way. That's a long way. And I don't see, if we're not at that level where we can do what they're doing, they don't need us. I don't see what there is that we have to offer for them.
I saw an interview with Neil deGrasse Tyson. I enjoy his work.
I do too.
He interviewed someone, but she basically compared to the amount of space exploration we've done to a 12-ounce glass of water. Like, we've only explored so little of space that we have so much left to basically uncover.
I think it's like 5%.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. So do you have any experience with like UFOs or anything like that?
Wish.
Yeah, we talk about that. We've had a couple past episodes where we've gone into the rabbit hole of UFOs
and Bigfoot.
Yeah.
So I know Mark and I are both open to the idea of something else has to exist out there, especially UFOs. There's no possible way.
They're so exponential.
Right. I think it was Carl Sagan who said for how big the universe is out there, it's impossible for those not to be other life forms out there. So.
The image that comes to mind is the Hubble Space Telescope.
Yeah.
They decided that they had some downtime, so they were going to point the Hubble Space Telescope at the darkest place in the sky they could point, even for Hubble.
Yeah.
So they picked this dark place and they left the shutter open. It's not what they do, but for want of a better word, they left the shutter open for a long time, like a few days. And that black hole that they were looking at ended up having thousands of other galaxies in the picture. Not just thousands of stars, but thousands of galaxies that have thousands of stars. And each of those stars could have planets.
Yeah.
And it would be...
It's amazing.
I am interested in the new military releases of video footage of alleged UFOs because the physics of what these objects allegedly do aren't possible with technology that we have today. The other thing that interests me is when they show these UFOs and they say, and it took off at, X thousand miles an hour. Well, if there's somebody in there, it's not like getting pushed back in the seat.
Right.
I would tend to think that it's either a remotely operated entity or whoever's inside is nothing like us.
Right.
It's
able to handle that sort of stuff.
Exactly. Acceleration, deceleration. Again, the physics don't line up unless you're... But again, when we're talking about aliens, it's like if you were a fish and somebody was trying to explain fire to you.
Yeah.
You've never seen fire. You've never experienced fire. You wouldn't know fire. You have no concept of what what fire is even about. So that's my idea of trying to look into aliens. You know, I went to lunch at JPL in the employee cafeteria, and you know, big long tables, and on the other side of the table there was a team of kids, and I say kids because they were probably in their 20s, and they were in charge of the mission to Europa. And Europa is one of Saturn's moons. And Europa is an ice-covered moon that has a very thin crust, and then they think there is like a liquid methane ocean beneath it.
Okay.
Well, they were designing a craft that was going to land on the ice, poke a hole in the ice, go through the ice, and discover what's underneath.
Okay.
And their discussion was this: well, what if it only stays alive for a second? Okay, well, we can get this data and this data and this data. Well, what if it stays alive for 2 seconds? Well, then, and that's how they were, that's how their mindset was. You know, if this thing only survives for a few seconds, what kind of data are we going to suck out of there before we do? And then they started talking about, what if there are creatures? What if there's some big old methane-based whale that's just going to chomp on this thing? So I think even within our own solar system, that there's still things that we could figure out.
Right, very cool. Different transition to a totally different subject.
Yeah, I love that.
I love that. Do you have a favorite sandwich?
Yeah, probably ham sandwich.
Ham
I like ham sandwich. But my ham sandwiches look like ham is the major component in the sandwich, you know. Maybe some other little stuff, but get out of the way of my ham, you know.
Yeah, I do ham on mustard, and I'm good.
There you go. There you go.
Favorite movie?
Depends on what kind of movie.
Okay.
Sci-fi, I think that if you splice Alien and Aliens together, it is the best science fiction movie ever, because Aliens picks up exactly where Alien left off.
Yeah.
Spacecraft drifts away. It comes back again as way cool. Also, Alien, as a science fiction movie, as a science geek, if you look at the screens of the Nostromo when it's landing, all of the screens are in a landing sequence mode. And everything that they're doing when the landing leg pods are coming down, everything syncs. It all makes sense from a tech standpoint. Oh, I taught physics with a guy at the Valley Academy of Arts and Sciences, and we got kicked out of the Martian because they got tired of us going, no way, no way. Now, this is what got us kicked out. James standing up and going, do you know what a hurricane's like on Mars? That's it. You guys are out of here. Yeah. So that I liked Alien and Aliens back to back. Great science fiction movie.
I have to ask something totally that we don't. Is time travel possible?
Yes, I think time travel is, but not on the levels.
Like
not
Back
on
to
the
the
levels
Future, like
that
DeLorean.
we're talking about.
Okay.
You know, I think the energy required and it's more of a speed thing than it is an energy thing, because
So you have to get up to 90 in a DeLorean?
88.
88.
Yeah.
Right. Just keep just can do 90.
You know, that's based on 88 feet per second is 60 miles an hour.
Is it really?
Yeah. Anyway, that's so. So if anyway, the physics behind it would be preclusive to stay alive. I think is the thing right now. We see a condition called time dilation, which is it's the principle that it was Einstein's originally, his theory of relativity said that the far away two sources are from a gravitational field, that the one furthest away will age at a slower speed than the one that's closest to the gravitational pull. And they recently confirmed that with a micro experiment where they took two atomic clocks that were exactly the same. They worked off of, they actually froze strontium atoms so that they'd have a reference that these two clocks were exactly running at the same, and then they separated them by a millimeter, 0.04 of an inch, and measured them again and saw the shift.
Wow.
Saw the shift that even moving them a millimeter, they could do that. Now you think, why do that? Because that shift now, especially with the James Webb Space Telescope, we're looking billions of light years away from us.
Right.
We're going to look back to 100 million years after the Big Bang. Because everybody says, okay, the James Webb Space Telescope is going to be able to look so far back into the past. Will we be able to see the Big Bang? Even if we could, what will we see? A flash? There's not anything imageable that far back.
Right.
So they want to image 100 million years after the Big Bang, because that's when stuff started to congeal and make stuff.
Right.
Before then, it was just
Formation.
raw energy, raw whatever.
Right.
But then it started to congeal, and you have accretion disks, and those are the spinning plates that eventually become solar systems and planets, and the dust starts to make balls, and those balls turn into planets, et cetera, et cetera. So I think that's, when you go back that far,
Yeah.
like, for example, if you look at the sun, well, don't do that. But when we look at the sun, the light that we see coming from the sun actually happened 8 minutes ago.
Right.
Okay, so if the sun were to blow up,
Right.
we wouldn't know for 8 minutes. Okay. The same thing happens when we look at Betelgeuse is a prominent star in the Orion galaxy. It's the one in the upper left-hand corner. It looks red compared to the other stars. That light that we see coming from Betelgeuse happened during the Ice Age.
What?
Yeah.
Wild.
Yeah. And not only that, but yeah, and there's a
Can
whole.
you see that with the naked eye, or is that take a telescope?
No, you can see Betelgeuse with an. You know, Orion is the one that has 3 stars in the belt,
Yeah.
and it's got 2 stars up at the top, 2 stars down at the bottom, and then 3 stars in the middle. And just below the second star in the belt is the Orion Nebula. It's a cloud of gas and dust particles that is building stars. It's like a little star factory, and you can watch that. Anyway, I digress. But the point we were making is like the same reason that kind of time travel. If you have somebody that's that far away from somebody on Earth, the further they are, the less they're going to age compared to you. But it's not. What was the movie? Matthew McConaughey. Interstellar. Thank you very much. It's not a linear process.
Right.
Okay, it's exponential. So after a while, it would take you a long time and a long distance to experience time travel. And that's still not that. All that is altering current time. It's not necessarily taking you back in time. I don't know. That's
it's super interesting.
yeah.
Good, Chris. No.
Well, then you get into all of those. If you go back in time and you mess with something, the butterfly effect. Are you familiar with that?
Yeah.
And there were, if I alter something and keep my dad from meeting my mom,
Right. Which is a great premises for a movie.
Yeah. Do I exist?
Well, good transition to
Dad science jokes. If we're ready.
Here we go. Are we ready? Yeah.
By the way, I think you're incredibly interesting, and
Absolutely.
Mark and I.
Oh, you're just saying that 'cause it's true.
Listen, we really appreciate you coming on and talking with us. You know, Roseburg has characters. Roseburg has interesting characters, but you're definitely one of the most interesting people that I think Mark and I have.
Wow.
Yeah.
So we
I'm
really,
sorry you've had such a limited experience.
no, you're super. We really appreciate it.
You had to come to me to find someone interesting? That's just sad. My gosh.
how about some free dad jokes? There we go.
Okay, wait. Why can't you trust atoms?
Oh,
They make up everything. Oh, was that on the list?
that's the last one. We're crossing off. That's perfect.
He time traveled and knew that was
That's right.
perfect.
I was over your shoulder.
You
That's
read.
amazing.
Mark's the one usually cheating on these. Why did the cloud date the fog? Why did the cloud date the fog? You guys ready? He was so down to earth.
Oh.
Wow. Look
Right.
at him. Wow.
Right? Why are chemists so good at solving problems? They're always working with solutions.
Oh.
What did the science book say to the math book? You've got problems. All right,
if you're
these
in a
don't get
Florida
any
math book
better.
now.
What do protons and life coaches have in common? They know how to stay positive.
I knew it had to do with
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Where does criminal light end up? Criminal light end up. So stupid. In prism.
Oh,
So
I
bad.
love the gut punch.
So bad. All right, and the last terrible one. How do you throw a party in space? You plan it.
Oh, that's it. That's
Well,
Doug,
anyway,
thank you so
much.
Guys, thank you.
This was
Yes.
great.
I
So,
haven't been able to digress like this for a long time.
well, we're happy to have you on.
Yeah.
Mark, any parting words, sir? Before
No,
I give my last spiel.
This is great. You can find us on YouTube. We're definitely open for any more sponsors. We'll
Yes.
start reaching out to other local businesses,
Yes.
and our numbers are growing like crazy.
Yes,
So,
and reach out if you need to get a hold of us. It's OregonFilesPodcast@yahoo.com.
bingo.
You can download us on Apple Podcasts, Google, Amazon Stitcher, Podcast Addict. Just Google us, or you can check out our Facebook page. It's just Oregon Files Podcast. And I hope everyone enjoyed our interview today with Doug. And I hope you enjoyed being on. And
I don't have that much social media, but if you want to follow me, I have a 2020 Dodge pickup, and it's great.
with that, have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.